Build this deck now. You won't regret it. Hello and welcome to the table, and today I'm back with another One Piece deck tech video, this time talking about UY Nami. This deck is really fun and powerful in a more casual setting right now, but when EBO3 releases, this will become one of the most powerful decks in the entire game. And to put it mildly, this deck will get a lot more expensive. While Nami is a little bit expensive to invest in right now, if you can get some good trades off of your opponent for like a playset of Kumas and some of the more expensive cards in the deck like Marco and Kuma, obviously, then, you know, you can get this deck for quite a bit cheaper than it will be here in a few months. So let's talk about the deck and why you should buy it right now. So Nami, as a leader herself, is a 4-life, 5k power leader that on your turn, once per turn, when either a life card is removed from you or your opponent's life cards, if you have several of those cards in hand, you draw a card. So if your opponent takes a life, if you take a life off of one of your own effects for some reason, you get to draw a card. That seems pretty powerful in my opinion. And on top of that, if there is a Dawn under Nami on your opponent's attack once per turn, you can trash a card from your hand and give Nami a 2k power bump. Not for the attack, but for the entire turn. That is really powerful, especially against aggressive decks. So this deck is a bit of a defensive just juggernaut. And its late game, especially with the cards coming in EBO3, is going to be one of the strongest in the game's history. In my opinion, at least. So, besides the leader, we also got the deck. I mean, we got the Dawn, of course. But besides the Dawn and, you know, the leader and all that kind of whatnot, we have the deck itself. And to start things off, we got the 2Ks of the deck, which some of them are actually pretty powerful plays by themselves. Such as Kozuki Hiyori, a 2-cost 0-power 2k counter character that on play, you can add a card from the top or bottom of your life to your hand and add a card from your hand to the top of your life. So essentially, this is a one-time get a bonus card off a Nami effect kind of thing. You use this, take a life, and then put one right back, so you're not going down any life, but you also get to go up a card with, you know, thanks to Nami's effect. So you're basically kind of filtering through your deck a bit, is essentially what this card does if you play it, or it's just a 2k counter. Generally, you're playing it as a 2k counter, but if you need to play it, it actually does some decent work. Because, like, you know, getting to search through your deck is not bad by any means whatsoever. But then, besides that, there is also Otama, which this card is a bit expensive right now. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, because PROB2 rares are very hard to pull, so they're all a lot more expensive than they should be. But Otama is one of the more notable ones, as this card is almost $10 for a rare. But this 2-cost 0-power 2k counter character has an activate main, saying you can rest this character and add one card from the top or bottom of your life to your hand, and up to one of your leader characters gets plus 3k power for the turn, and it also has a trigger, getting to rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. This card's really solid, and, you know, you can also do the whole kind of Kozuki Hiyori add a life thing to get a card off of Nami. You're not getting a life back with Otama, but you're getting a bit of a power bump, which, you know, not as good as Hiyori, but, you know, as you know, the fact that you can't get as good of an effect as the Kozuki Hiyori, you at least get a trigger. So that's good. And I mean, you could replace this Otama with other 2k counters. You could replace it with the OP13 Otama 2k counter. That card's pretty good. You could replace it with Capone Gain Veggie, that 2k counter from like OP05 or whatever it was. That's trigger forces a leader or character to be unable to attack, which again, something like Green Zoro isn't bad by any means. So this Otama, if you don't get it and you replace it with one of those other 2Ks that I mentioned, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to be that big of a problem by any means. You could even replace it with, what's his name, Zeus, and just pray that you don't play against Emu. So there's that too, because Zeus ain't a bad card either, being able to KO your opponent's stuff. But then there's Baby 5, a card that I've added as a 2K to the deck fairly recently. I had Zeus in the deck, and then I played against too many Emus, and I'm like, okay, I'll replace it with Baby 5, because I think this card is actually a pretty solid card, and in some senses better than Zeus, in others not, because you can't KO something, but it's a 4-cost 5K, 2K counter. You know, that's solid. That's, you know, vanilla-ish 2K. That's all good. But its trigger, if your leader is multicolored, allows you to draw 2 cards, which that is the main reason it's in the deck. I love this trigger. I think it's a very, very good trigger. Now, granted, there's probably some other better triggers I can put in the deck, like that Capone Game Veggie, but I just love drawing cards with this deck. So don't yell at me, okay? I just love to be greedy, and that's what this deck is in a nutshell. I mean, come on. It's Nami. If you're playing Nami, you gotta play the greediest cards. You gotta be the greediest person that you possibly can be. To, you know, represent. But yeah, Baby 5, it's a solid card. You could replace it with other cards, but I just like it in a deck because, you know, drawing more cards in a deck like this is not, you know, a bad thing by any means. But then getting past the 2Ks, we got the blockers. Now, not every single blocker in the deck is included in this little spot, but I got a vast majority of them. Such as Marco, one of the more expensive cards in the deck. This card's like 18 bucks right now, which is unfortunate, but, you know, it's a lot less expensive than it was, being like 30 bucks a couple of months ago. But this 4-cost 6K, no K counter blocker is pretty simple, because besides just being an on-rate body that has blocker, sure it doesn't counter, is great, especially when you add into consideration that on KO, you draw 2 cards. So yeah, you play this, you block with it. It's not a small blocker by any means. So your opponent wants to send something a bit bigger. And then, even if you know, want to save this for some reason, whenever it does inevitably die, you get to just draw 2 cards. That's dumb. This card's really dumb and really powerful and really pretty too. So, as far as, you know, cards that you need to be getting for Nami before EBO3, if you're wanting to play Nami, get this now, because this card is not going to be less than like 20 bucks at least within like the next month. Which sucks, but I mean, Nami's gonna be really solid. And this card, realistically, probably was a bit of a problem, and probably shouldn't have been made because it's a little bit broken. But maybe that's just me. But then some more blockers. We got Kozuki Hiyori. This card's really good. It's a 4-cost, 0 power. 0 power for a 4-cost. What the heck? 1K counter body. That has blocker. So it's a chump blocker, but it costs 4. That seems awful. But on KO, you get a really nice effect of getting a trash card from your hand, because you're going to have plenty of cards in your hand. That's another reason that I like to run Baby 5. There's a lot of things that can allow you to trash, and it's like, I just want to have a really good hand size for the entirety of the game and not have to worry about that. But you can trash a card from your hand when this card dies, and if your leader is multicolored, which it is, you add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. So essentially, this kind of negates 2 attacks from your opponent. The reason I say that is, let's say your opponent has enough swings to be able to kill you, even with this as a blocker, but not considering the fact that it can also gain you a life. Like, in most scenarios, if you were to have something like just a Marco as a blocker on the board, you block with it, you draw 2 cards, and then your opponent has just enough attacks to still be able to kill you, even with the blocker. So if you don't have the ability to play multiple blockers in a single turn, this card can be your saving grace in the later portions of the game, when your opponent has that last few swings that they need to be able to kill you, because this can block, save you from an attack, then give you another life. So that's basically 1 more attack that you can take before you die. Which, in my opinion, considering that this does, yeah, it's really good. It can, you know, make it really hard to kill you. That's why it's in the deck. And it counters. So worst case scenario, counter for 1. It's not a bad card. Speaking of which, there's also Nami. This is a card that I haven't seen in many of the Nami lists. I just like it in this list as another blocker. I like this deck to be super defensive, and I think this is a really good defensive card in Nami because it's a 5-cost 6k, 1k counter blocker. That's all good. But on top of that, when you play this, if your leader is multicolored, you get to draw 3, then place 2 cards from your hand at the top or bottom of your deck in any order. So you get some hand selection, but instead of just trashing the cards like a lot of cards do, that kind of like draw 3 and then force you to like trash so many, you're not trashing. You're getting to put it on the top or bottom of your deck. So if there's still cards that you really want and you don't want to just get rid of, you can put them on top of your life. Or if they're just trash and you don't want to see them ever again, you can just put them on the bottom. So that's something that I do like about this deck, because there's so many things in this deck that you really need. You need to sculpt your hand so well in this deck to survive in the later portions of the game against certain decks. And I just think having a card that can sculpt your hand while also not forcing you to get rid of cards that can still be really powerful and good for you, just having them on the top so you can draw into them later, I think is really solid and really powerful. And again, worst case scenario, it counters for 1. There's a reason this card's good in UP Luffy right now. It's just a solid card. It ain't bad. But yeah, getting past the blockers now, I got some disruption. And we got the best piece of disruption in this entire game, and the one that we all love to hate. This is my least favorite card in the entire game. I hate Emu, but I hate this card more. That says something. But Charlotte Pudding, a 4-cost, 4k, 1k counter body that on play, if your opponent, your opponent just returns all cards from their hand to their deck, and then shuffles their deck, and then they draw 5 new cards. So if your opponent's been sculpting their hand, they play like 2 searchers, like last night. I played Buggy in a casual tournament last night, and I got a pudding plate on me. I had 8 cards in hand, and I had played 2 searchers. I had the perfect hand to be able to do some really dumb things. And this got played. And then I drew 3 bricks, and I drew 2 2k counters that I could not have played on the following turn, and I lost the game. Now, granted, pudding isn't always going to be a card that you just play and your opponent loses, but it's a thing that can give you a massive tempo swing and allow it to be a lot easier for you to win the game. Oh, and by the way, worst case scenario, you can counter for 1. So there's that too. So yeah, Charlotte Pudding. It's a bit of a broken card. Bandai, please ban this. But yeah, I honestly, like, being all serious here, when EBO3 does come out, there's going to be like a ban list coming around then. I honest to God do think this card is going to get banned. So don't expect this to be around for a long time, because it's probably going to get hit. And if it does get hit, I might replace it with a Cavendish, though it does not counter for anything. There'll probably be another, when EBO3 comes out, I've seen a lot of lists cut the Kozuki Hiyori for a different card. Not another 4-cost body, you just go down, play set of 4-cost bodies. When this card probably gets banned, I'll just replace it with this card again. And then you have this as a blocker, and it can counter for 1. It can do similar things to Pudding in the sense that, like, it can allow you to get good tempo swings, but it's not obviously going to be nearly as good as Pudding. So yeah, there you go. So Pudding, don't expect it to be around for a super long time, because I do think it's probably going to get banned, because this card also is one of the reasons that Nami is the best deck in the Eastern EBO3 meta. I mean, I know it's OP14 now, but when it was the EBO3 meta, this was one of the primary reasons that this deck was the best deck. So, there you go. Better than Emu, by the way. But yeah, then we got Gum Gum Red Rock. Just have this as a 2 of. I do love this card a ton. It's a 6-cost event that just, boom, gets rid of one of your opponent's characters. Just puts it on the bottom of their deck. Never gonna see that again. They will never, ever see that card ever again. It's an absolutely wonderful card. And trigger, you get to place one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 less at the bottom of their deck. And it just so happens that a lot of blockers in this game cost 4 or less. So if you're kind of like trying to close and your opponent has one like chump blocker, quote unquote, or one like fairly sized like medium-sized blocker left, and you get this off a trigger because you're gaining a ton of life in this deck, boom, activate this trigger, and your opponent just cries in a corner. So yeah, love Gum Gum Red Rock. Now, I'm moving past the interaction side of the deck. There is more cards that interact with stuff in this deck, but that was the cards that just, their only purpose is to screw with the opponent and make their life miserable. So yeah, those 6 cards are just in that little category. There are more ways to interact with your opponent. I mean, obviously, you've seen some of them so far. But getting past that, I have kind of the more, like, the aggressive tools in the deck and the end game cards of the deck. I'm going to kind of mush them into one category because they feel similar. You know what? This is the how you win category of the deck. Let's go with that. So Kikunojo is the first card in this kind of category. And the reason that I think this card is so crucial to allowing you to win the game is simply because of this trigger. Now I'll get to what this trigger is here in a second. But this 4-cost 6k body that doesn't counter, which sucks, but honestly, for everything else this card does, I do not care that it does not counter. It is a good thing this card doesn't counter. But it's a 4/6, no key counter body that on KO, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you get to gain a life. This card is bullshit. Yeah, this card... This is one of my least favorite cards in the game, just for the fact that its trigger, if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, allows you to play it. So, you can get a free 6k body out of nowhere, and by the way, the reason that I think this card, Kozuki Hori, can sometimes be a good card to play on turn 1, is so you can set up a little Kikunojo at the top of your life, you take your first life, and it's like, oh, by the way, free 6k. And then your opponent cries because, you know, this is a really good card to get multiples of out on the board. It can be really good aggression that if your opponent kills, you're very likely just gonna gain a life. If you're playing against a 6k leader like UP Luffy, like Ace, it just guaranteed gains you life. There's no way for them to gain life in that deck, in those decks. And when we get to EVO3, then there's Charlotte Lilians for UP Luffy, but whatever, we don't care about that. But Kikunojo here, with this, the way that this deck likes to work, your opponent, when they have the ability to kill this, basically says, okay, sure, you can kill it. I gain a life. It's stupid. This card is so stupid. I hate this card. I love it in this deck, but God, I hate playing against this card for reasons that I said prior. But then there's also Yamato, a card that I think is so dumb in this deck. Do note that its on play only works if you have 3 or less life, because I've seen people make that mistake plenty of times before. Not plenty of times. I've seen people make that mistake before. That sounded really rude of me to say in my head. But so Yamato here is a 5-cost 6k, 1k counter body. Decent stats. On play, if you have 3 or less life cards, you want to make sure that you have 3 or less life cards because you get to then draw 2 cards. Great start. But on top of that, you get to give 1 Rested Dawn card to your leader. Now, something that you might have noticed, there's a lot of even cost cards in this deck. This deck kind of likes to go on an even curve. But that's really annoying in some senses because there are 0 ways in this deck outside of 2 cards because we don't have the 2-cost Young Girl promo. There is nothing basically that can give Rested Dawn to Nami. So it can be really annoying to activate this bottom ability actually. So yay. But yeah, Nami here. Yeah, it's this. Getting the Rested Dawn, especially if you're on an odd curve. If you have a 5-drop like this Yamato, you play it, and then you can get that Rested Dawn onto Nami, get that Rested Dawn so you can do the whole 2k bump for a turn, that can be so valuable. And even if that's not the case and you have this Yamato, you play this Yamato, you need that other Dawn that would be active if you have 6 Dawn. You need that other active Dawn in order to do something, in order to kill one of your opponent's things. Generally, that is a lot more common than you might think it is. Then you can still get that Rested Dawn onto Nami in order to be able to use her effect. And on top of that, you develop a 6k body that replaces itself and gets you a bonus card, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, this card's really dumb, and it's really cheap. Get this right now for Nami, if you're wanting to play Nami. And speaking of cards you want to get when you play Nami, oh boy. Bartholomew Kuma, the most expensive card in the game right now. This card, first off, needs to see a reprinting, especially when Nami gets good. Honestly, this card might be banned when EBO3 comes out, because the ban announcement is going to be right around EBO3's release, I think. This card might be banned, and if it does, I'm going to be very sad, because I invested a lot in this card. But besides that, Bartholomew Kuma is a 6-cost, 7k, 1k counter body. Does not need to counter for 1, by the way. But on play, you can trash a card from your hand and add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. Great. And then this character gains +2 cost until the end of your opponent's next end phase. So basically, on play, you gain a life. And this thing becomes that much harder to kill until the start of your next turn. Oh, by the way, on your opponent's turn, when this is KO'd, if they find a way to KO it immediately, or if they just ever KO it, you get to add a card from the top of your deck to the top of your life cards. Woo! This card isn't bull crap at all. Yeah, this card is the most broken card in the entire deck. It is a 7k aggressive body. If your opponent kills it, you get to gain a life. When you play it, you gain a life. When you play it first off and it goes to your opponent's turn, it's really hard to kill. If they do kill it, you gain a life. If they don't, go back to your turn. You swing for 7. Your opponent has to give you 2 cards or they take a hit. This card just gets you so much value, it is not even funny. I have feelings about this card. Let's go with that. I love this card. I think it's a very good card, but it is so over the top broken like Marco. It is not even funny. But then, let's talk about Eustace Captain Kit. This card is also a pretty solid card against certain matchups specifically. When you're playing against more aggressive decks, you pretty much never play this card because you're playing more like Kuma, and you're playing like Kikunojo, and you're playing some Marcos. Like, those are the primary cards you're playing. You're not really playing kids that much, especially because of the fact that they can't counter. You're generally like trashing those away so that you can get the bumps off of Nami. But when you're not playing against aggressive decks, this card's awesome. It's an 8-cost 9k, sure, no K counter body. I really wish it countered, but it's an 8-cost 9k, no K counter body that on play allows you to rest it and then trash a card from the top of your opponent's life cards. So that's awesome. Doesn't even go to their hand, and that just made it that much more even. You know, like if you were at 2 life, your opponent was at 3 life, all of a sudden you're both at 2 life, and you have more cards to gain life, more than likely, than your opponent. So that's great. And also, on top of that, if your opponent does have 2 or less life, like in that scenario I just said, at the end of your turn, you get to draw a card and trash a card. So you get to filter through your hand. You get to, you know, get rid of some bricks in your hand that you really don't need. You just need more 2Ks. You get to get rid of some of those no K counters, and you get to get more 2Ks in theory. This card, against mid-range and kind of more control decks, like if you ever play against an Emu deck, you just want to see this. Like, you want to see all of this, basically. And you also want to see all the Kumas. You want to see all of a lot of cards, honestly, against Emu, but yeah. Kid, it's a card, and it can be really good against the right deck. It can be one of your best cards, maybe even your best card. But speaking of really good cards, let's talk about Edward Newgate, a card that I think might get banned in Ace specifically, but it's still a really dumb card, because this 10-cost 12k blocker that does not counter, thank God, on play also allows you to draw 2 cards and trash a card from your hand, and then give your leader and one of your characters up to 2 Rested Dawn cards each. This card is so over the top in Ace, and it's really good in Nami as well. So simply put, I think this card, if you can get to it and you can chain several of these, because you can get that Rested Dawn onto Nami in order to be able to do her effect every single turn for however many of these you play. Also getting Rested Dawn onto your other stuff, let's say Akuma, now it's swinging in for 9. Or something like a Kikunojo, now it's swinging in for 8. And then you're sending in 7s and 8s or 9s and doing that every turn. And also, you have a blocker that has 12k power that replaced itself. This card is so dumb. But yeah, that is the deck. That is Nami. I hope that you all enjoy this deck if you do build it. And if you have any, like, kind of, like, you're leaning towards what side of the fence. Like, I want to build Nami. I don't want to build Nami. If you are debating whether or not to build Nami, just build her. It will be a big investment, but if you think you will enjoy playing the deck, get all the cards you need for it right now, like I did with UP Luffy and this deck, but just earlier than I did with UP Luffy. Because when certain cards come out and they become more meta, like this Nami deck, when it becomes more meta with EDO3, this, where's that? Marco, for sure, is going to cost way more than it does now. Kuma is going to be so expensive. Kuma's going to be at least like $45 or $50 a piece, and it will need to be reprinted. Maybe just banned, who knows? Probably won't be banned because it's super new. But the thing is that if you want to build Nami, or you are debating whether or not to build Nami, just build Nami, because it will be a massive, massive investment, and it will pay up well. So, with all that aside, I hope that you all now know why you should build Nami now, and that you will not regret it. And with all that aside, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, it's completely free on credits, and stay tuned for more One Piece deck tech videos, and, you know, if you're also a Flesh and Blood viewer, Flesh and Blood videos coming very soon.